It's not a podcast, it's like a bona fide celebration of Alan Wake 2. Welcome to the Friendly Fire Show, episode 254. I am one of your co-hosts, Steve Wright. Joining me from Adelaide, but removed, I guess. He's in Melbourne, but he's from Adelaide, like Ben. Weird segue. Matt Ponk Gosper, longtime Stevivor writer, sort of newfound survival horror lover, or video game-wise? Yes. Hi, welcome.
I just wanted to... Hi, my name is Matt Gosper. I'm a writer. And a podcaster.
I've done that so often. I'm Steve Wright. I'm a writer. And I can't say anything yet because I was going to get into something spoilery. We're obviously talking about Alan Wake 2.
Right off the bat.
Well, no, but I caught myself. We're going to talk about Alan Wake 2 for the next, 45 minutes or so, give or take. And the first half is going to be as spoiler-free as possible. The second half we're going to get into, we've both finished, we're going to get into spoilery stuff. We'll very clearly mark it, and we'll very clearly give you a getting out point. So if you haven't finished, you can leave, but rest assured, for the next little while, you'll be just fine. We might...
Is 100% a game you do not want spoiled, because the twists and turns are the best part. Honestly, every Discord I've been in that's talked about Alan Wake for the last week, they are censored, spoiler tagged, like a document straight out of the FBC. It's fantastic.
As well, they very well should be. So there's a lot of redactions going to happen. We might get into some stuff that happened in the original Alan Wake that came out in 2010. So like you've had enough time. Same thing for Alan Wake's American Nightmare, and same for Control. That said, we're not like going to purposely try to ruin everything. I am a longtime Remedy fan. I have been playing Remedy games since Alan Wake, which, not Alan Wake, Max Payne. They're all two name one, you know what I mean. Max Payne, his face is Sam Lake. Sam Lake is a genius. He's very heavily influenced by Twin Peaks and David Lynch, and I have not a newfound, because I've had it since 2010, a respect for David Lynch that I only got because I played Alan Wake back in the day and liked this weird, ethereal craziness. And that's probably a good place to start. So that's kind of where my background is coming from. Matt, I mentioned that, you sort of new-ish to like the Resident Evils and the world. Where are you with Alan Wake? Where are you with this kind of genre? And, it could be horror, it could be action thriller, or it could be just survival horror, depending on what part of Remedy or Alan Wake you're talking about.
Yeah, so I am a fairly recent horror game convert. I finally got the memo. I dabbled early on. I'd say probably Alan Wake, the original, was one of the first quote-unquote scary games that I played. I was probably challenging myself at the time, and having replayed Alan Wake Remastered right before the sequel dropped, I realized now that game was not scary at all. My tolerance is thankfully much higher now. So yeah, I sort of caught up on the Resident Evils as the remakes have been coming out. Dead Space, I've played through all of those now. I would love to play a Silent Hill game if they would just make them available for play. Game preservation, get on it. But yeah, I've just been expanding my sort of experience. My next big challenge is to watch the film It, but we're not there yet. So Alan Wake 2 will have to do for now.
Well, there you go. I don't know if you've played the new Silent Hill Ascension, that weird kind of freemium.
I've seen one screenshot of it, and that was enough.
It's not good, but we're not talking about that, thankfully. We're talking about Alan Wake. I've played the original Alan Wake probably like 7 times or something ridiculous. I've played American Nightmare to the point where I'm familiar with it, but I haven't finished like the weird like horde mode kind of achievements. I've got 1,000 gamer score on Alan Wake and in remastered. I love it. Control, Max Payne before it, and like Alan Wake 2 is, I hate calling things like a love letter too, but like it's a love letter to everything that Remedy has done in the past. So if you like any of those franchises that I've just pulled out of my behind, you will adore this game. If you like Spider-Man 2 is a love letter to New York in a kind of like very American way where like at some point it's beating you over the head with like, if you're not from New York, you're shit because we're the best, we are resilient and blah blah blah. And like there's something to be said for that. Yay, good for you. Like, and New York is fantastic when you go. If you've ever been, it's great. But this is like it's a love letter to the noir style of things and sort of New York adjacent to it. But I'm just
and also the
babbling.
Pacific Northwest spookies kind of vibe, which I've not watched it for my sins, but Twin Peaks, all that kind of stuff. Half the podcasts that got me into spooky podcasts as well. But yeah, it's fun seeing that there's kind of two horror games inside this game because they're coming at sort of scared from two completely different directions that still work in tandem, which is really lovely.
Yeah, well, so let's quickly we can do all this in one. So there's two protagonists in Alan Wake 2. It is definitely a sequel, as you can probably ascertain from the title. But it's been designed in a way that you can kind of tackle this without any of the previous games in the franchise or the Remedy connected universe or etc. So in one hand, you play as Saga Anderson. She's an FBI agent, and it's very, to a point, rooted in like the real world and reality, and it's very procedural. You investigate murder scenes in the opening of the game, and you go to your mind place, which is like Sherlock Holmes' mind palace, and piece together clues, and then kind of work from there. And in the other hand, you have Alan Wake, who, if you've seen any of or played any of the previous games, is trapped in a supernatural phenomenon known as the Dark Place. And I guess if you don't know about it, as Saga, you're kind of working towards figuring what that is, but you get clues and yada, yada, yada. I guess, long story short, how was that dodgy synopsis, Matt? And do you feel like if you hadn't played Alan Wake or Remastered just before, does it make enough sense? Has Remedy fit the brief of, yeah, you don't have to play the previous games, you can just play this?
Yeah, this is something I was considering as I was playing through, because again, a lot of friends have asked sort of, can I go into this without the background of the entire stable of Remedy games? It's interesting because Saga, she's our audience insert, right? She's fresh to the whole situation. She's learning as she goes. So it kind of gives you the opportunity to introduce or remind yourself about kind of the stock standard building blocks of Alan Wake as a game. You hit him with a flashlight, hit him with a gun. It's scary. They're going to come at you from behind, dodge, all that kind of stuff. She has to learn that as she gets mixed up in all of this. Whereas Alan's a lot more referential to his own story, both within the game and without the game. But yeah, I think it works well introducing you to the basic concepts. It's definitely a situation where you'll get... it's always annoying to hear someone say it, but you get more out of it if you've seen the whole thing. But it's true. Like, the game is layered on itself in a way that it's not just referencing the previous games or the previous characters, it's the history of the studio and the people within the studio as well. So it gives you a lot of information, but I think, if you're coming off the original games going into this, or you go back and play Alan Wake Remastered, now available on PS5 and Xbox Series X, you would then be able to say, oh, okay, I see how we got to where we were in Alan Wake 2. But yeah, I think they've done a pretty decent job of getting you to the start line if you haven't got that background.
I think so too. Like, I live and breathe this whole thing. Like, to the point where I played Alan Wake, I loved the Pacific Northwest, like you were talking about. Not only did I watch Twin Peaks, I went to Seattle and like dragged my boyfriend at the time, now my husband, to. So he didn't leave me, as I guess where I was going with that. Like, 2 Twin Peaks filming locations for an entire day, and it was the best thing in the world. And like, now walking through the 2010 Alan Wake was a completely different beast. It was cameras pulled back from your entire person, as opposed to like the really tight behind the shoulder, like Resident Evil 2 remake kind of camera. Alan could run, and like the central premise is still the same. Like, you're fighting.
Alan couldn't run. Let's be real.
He couldn't run. You're fighting beings of darkness who are like shrouded in a shield of darkness, and you need the light. In this case, usually a flashlight or a flare gun or spotlights that are like hanging from a concert pole concert pole. You know what I mean? A
A
pole
concert pole,
with
yeah.
lights at a concert, and like so you need to first kind of like blast the darkness away, and then this this taken. They're called taken. This person who has been taken by the darkness. The darkness shield is dropped, and they're vulnerable. But you still have to bludgeon them, or in most cases, just shoot them with a gun of some description. So that's the cool bit. I just love this game so much. I just get confused and I forget what I'm even going on. There was some sort of thread there that I was trying to weave, and I've already forgotten.
Yeah, it was kind of a fresh mechanic. Like it was giving like the nods to Silent Hill and Resident Evil as like source inspirations, but it brought something new to the kind of the genre as well. It was an extra layer of like resource management. You have to like budget your batteries. You have to make time to change the battery, figure out if like when you're going to use it, where you're going to use it. But the thing that I actually replaying the remaster really felt well done was the exact position of the camera. I think I even messaged you about it. It was the fact that it's just far enough back from Alan that when one of those shady little fellas sneaks up behind you, you see him just a second before he cracks you over the head with his axe or whatever. So it gives you that split second to react and do his little swoopy dodge and get out of the way. But every single time it happens, you're just like, oh shit, because it's right there.
Yeah, it was not. It was not survival horror, but it was kind of like the survival horror atmosphere that like the very fixed camera original Resident Evils would give you. Like you literally don't know what's behind the corner because you can't see behind the corner. Like in the same trick that they pull in films, like where like if in a real world situation someone was like right there, but the camera is just like an inch, not covering that, like you'd know that someone was there, but because you don't know and you're trying to guess what's happening. Anyway, that whole thing. Alan couldn't run for shit, like we were saying. He made it like 5 steps and then was huffing and puffing. The good thing about Alan Wake 2 is that it's kept that core of like the darkness and all the stuff we've talked about, but it's modernized controls. Like you're playing as Saga Anderson. She is an FBI agent. She is capable. Alan just, I guess, had time to do some cardio in the dark place. You feel
13 years of cardio, yeah.
I guess so. You feel more capable. You feel far more capable. Combat is more tight spaces and numbers than just like you against a being in the darkness. It's like it's not in a bad way though. There's tension that comes from the combat, but in a different way. It feels to me like a natural elevation of where it was and what it could be. And like I'm sure Remedy is spouting this as like their PR stuff, but like we're talking SSDs, we're talking like the control kind of style of having like the video game map as you're running through say a forest, but then having like real video elements kind of layered on top to really make it confusing as to what's in front of you. Like, are you in a subway station or are you in a forest? Like all these things are kind of the culmination of technology now. Like Remedy can do it, so it does. And I really like how it's all come to be.
Yeah, I think the fact that graphical processing and most importantly lighting have come so far in the 13 years since the last one came out have really brought it a big jump forward, because one of the things that I found really impressive about Saga, for a lot of the time you're running around in the woods in the Pacific Northwest. So it is dead dark outside your beam of your flashlight. And you don't see that far with a flashlight. It's a bit more realistic in that way as well. I swear there's one spot in one of the maps where there's a ranger cabin and you sort of go past it and it's elevated. And every time that thing popped up out of the darkness, exactly where I knew it would be, because I'd been past there a few times at that point, every time it was just that split second of, oh, because it's just a shape. It's very big. It's right there. And you didn't know it was there until you were 10 meters away instead of 11. So that kind of complete mystery outside your light beam, especially when you're going around for the first time, had me clenching the entire time I was playing.
Well, and like the technology is so good. Alan Wake 2 is getting lambasted for having incredibly ridiculous, highly unattainable PC specs, which were very conservative by Remedy's on Remedy's part. I was playing on. I've played on now PS5, Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S, and PC. I've done the gamut. Hardly discernible, like really. Like you can tell the Series S is doing a lot more grunt work, and it crashed more, especially when you were switching between Alan and Saga. But like, if that's all you had at your disposal, like you're not slumming it. It's by no means like a horrible experience. So well done to Remedy on that point.
I was playing on PS5 on performance mode because I'll always choose frame rate over graphical quality. Just because going from 60 to 30 at any point in your life is like watching a slideshow. But even on performance, it was crisp. It looked amazing. The lighting was amazing. I think I had maybe 1 frame rate dip the entire time I was playing. It's very well optimized. So I'm sorry to all the PC players out there who might have to rethink their budgets. But if you're coming on console, it's all good.
Yeah. Well, I think I probably would like PC more, and even since the 1.0.0.0.8, I don't think there's any more zeros. Like, the only thing that was easier to do on a PC as compared to console, not shooting and stuff, but I'm way better shooting on. I know that's an oxymoron. Like, I'm better shooting with a controller because that's just how I've grown up doing that. I know point and click is easier to shoot technically, but like I find it easier to shoot with a controller. Using a mouse and keyboard, using a mouse, not a keyboard so much, on the Mind Place and with Alan's writing board, like just so easier. Yeah. And now there's like drag and drop. You don't have to like hit the actual like specific point of like the post-it note to do the piecing together of things. It's just super good. I really, really like this game. And the way that, like it wasn't cabins that were scaring me, but like there's the Taken, that just kind of people shrouded in darkness, which are scary enough on their own, and now they like spout all these things that they like talk to you more. Like there's rambling, incoherent things, but there's also like very specific, like targeting you as Saga or as Alan, that like is trying to get into your psyche, and it's kind of scary if you think about it or stop to think about it.
Yeah, having recently been regifted a pretty nice surround sound system. That or headphones, fantastic. You'll always hear the Taken before you see them, which is very terrifying, especially early on before you really start powering up, because you can hear them. You're not sure exactly where. There's so many trees blocking your lines of sight. You'll catch them for half a second on the edge of your beam as you're swinging, then can't find him again. They build the tension really well. The thing I enjoy the most is that for Saga, it's the tension of when combat's going to start, when you're going to see an enemy, because you will go for long stretches where you won't see anyone. The music will occasionally surge to like spook you out thinking you're about to hit combat. Not always. Whereas for Alan, being in the dark place, he's always surrounded by shadows. It's just whether or not they're going to attack him. But yeah, on both sides, it's great because they're always talking, usually repeating phrases from their lives. Or for Alan, they're just constantly saying his name from right over your shoulder. I hate it. I love it.
Wake!
But yeah, they'll just be parroting phrases about their life. It's just like, you leave the chicken out to defrost, but it's delivered with such malice that you're like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I will leave the chicken out.
And if they're not shrouded in darkness, like there's a cult that's in Bright Falls, the Pacific Northwest town that you're based in, and it's like there are people in like raincoats. So that's not all that scary, but you look at their face and they're wearing like deer masks. Are they deer masks? Are they deer skulls? Is it like it's your brain fills in that like delicious horror movie way, like some of the gaps, and you make things more terrifying by filling in the unknown. And like that's a really good way to describe most of Alan Wake 2. It's just like there's so much unknown, and you're desperately just trying to fill in the unknown, and you're probably overcompensating and scaring yourself more than the reality would be. But that's the best part about it, and you just want to keep going and finding more. And like there's not an answer to every single question, and that's kind of like another really amazing thing about it. Like you answer so many questions as you progress, but you like find more questions. You completely turn around on what you think the answer to another question will be. It's Alan Wake's a horrible writer, and there's a whole bunch of meta stuff, probably from Sam Lake's part, about the creative process and what that means. for like something that you're putting out into the world. Like it's just there's so many layers upon layers upon layers, and the more that you sit and think about it, like the more I should say, just really enjoy it. It's just such a pristine package, and I think it was worth the 13-year wait. But I don't know what do you. Let's finish up with the general thoughts. Like what you go with the spoiler-free general summary, please, and I'll stop talking.
Okay, well, if we're going to touch on the best part of the game, in my opinion, it is Saga's mind place. Yeah. Filling in her clue board as she solves the various mysteries, or something else I really liked, all the collectibles are tracked there as well. Every time you find one of a couple of different times of hidden collectibles or stashes or like items of interest, you get a little Polaroid and you stick it on the board so you can figure out when you found them all. The checklist filling part of my brain, which is the same reason that I review so many RPGs for this website, absolutely love that. Like getting to pin everything up and get it solved and find the next connection. It's just like checklist brain crack. It was fantastic. Although I will say, if you forget to fill it in and you close off that part of the story, it's also very satisfying to go in and just see everything automatically fill in itself.
I was totally going to say that.
Done the legwork, but it's a ding, 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 ding.
And the way it rewards you for that, it's like, oh yeah, no, I've already figured that out. And then she's like, just like throws up, flings 5 photos of the thing, and then all the like red dots and the string. Oh, it's so good. It's even at the start, so satisfying. You go to the investigation part, and you either can walk the way it says, or you go around and like explore for 25 minutes like I did, and then come back to the people, and it's just like it's come up with you doing that, so it has dialogue that it spouts, and it has like, oh yeah, good, great. It's good. Sorry, I'm talking over you. It's
just the way that the space is designed as well. I really appreciate it. I think Saga's is probably better than Alan's, just because there are more points of interest. As you're hearing radio shows or songs, seeing TV broadcasts, which they've brought back. I love the goofy TV broadcasts. Each of those is kind of a spot in the room. There's a TV in the corner, there's a radio, there's the wall for the case board, there's like all the profiling she's doing of different people of interest on the desk. All of that, like you can go into one and then cycle through them with the shoulder buttons if you're playing on console. But also from any point in the room, you can also stand there and spin around and see all of them. So if you don't have to walk over to the case board to do the case solving, you can just be standing at one spot, turn and look at it, and bing back in. It's a great way of sort of feeding people who just want to get through it, and the people who want to kind of live in the space, which I guess I fall more into, because I love just like picking up the thing and then spinning around and looking at that and patting the deer and putting on the radio and listening to poor Pat Main drone on.
Oh, and that's so accurate for like the mind place itself and the game itself. Like you can go and explore and you'll be rewarded for it. And obviously, the more that you know beforehand, the more it will be rewarding. But also, like, it's also filling in gaps if I suppose you were new. But even in the mind place, you can go and find like a mug that your daughter gave you, and you sort of reflect upon your daughter, who is in I don't know if she's in Quantico, but she's not in Washington for sure. She's not in the same place that you are. Or you can go and see like a photo frame of your partner, Alex Casey, I guess the only thing that I would say to people, if you're sort of familiar with games and not with what's going on, it's more complicated than this, but Alex Casey is Max Payne, is kind of the easiest way to sort of, and that's because Remedy doesn't own the rights to Max Payne, they can't just outright say this is Max Payne. It's Rockstar owns it now. I can't even remember where it started. But yeah, it's like you don't need to really know that, but it sort of makes it all make more sense. And there's a whole bunch of, like I was saying, the meta layers that it sort of gets confusing enough even knowing that little factoid. Whereas if you didn't know that factoid, it would probably make it a little bit more confusing. But it sort of clues it. You get an idea. And if you don't, you don't really need that extra layer. But again, having that extra layer of knowledge makes it that much better.
Yeah, like if you're coming in fresh, you get that Alex Casey is the detective and Alex Casey is the guy that Alan Wake's books are about, because they make reference to it. He kind of shrugs it off. He's like, yeah, haha, the detective in the books has my name. I know, I've heard it. But it's then also nodding because Sam Lake plays the character. And then literally one of the first times you see him in the lovely live action segments, he pulls the Max Payne face, like
Yeah.
very, very aggressively to camera. So they're not shying away from it. They're just saying like, yeah, it's not Max Payne, wink wink.
But it is. Before we get into spoilers, because we're getting dangerously close, and I just want to talk about kind of stuff that people know. Would you recommend people play Alan Wake 2?
Absolutely. I think it's a great horror experience. Like I was so excited to sit down and just like freak myself out every single time. Uh, Far too many late nights in the last few weeks. Uh, it's you don't need to worry about playing everything that came before to start Alan Wake 2, but you're going to want to go play them afterwards. I say because the game is very episodic, it's a great game to just play one chunk a night to kind of space it out in the same way you might play a Dragon Quest game or something like that.
Yep.
Because it's you can have a bite, you'll have like an arc of tension, you'll reach a point where you feel you've achieved something, you'll get a teaser for the next thing, and then you'll get a banger original song in the credits.
I can't wait till they put out there's like a December 8th album now from the Old Gods of Asgard, which if you know, you know, and if you don't, you'll find out. It's great. I'm super excited for that.
Original songs by Finnish artists, and they all sound great.
They really do. And you hit the nail on the head. Like I think if you want to play the hot new thing now, you can, and I think it will just make you want to go back and play the older games. And like, while Control is completely fine, and you're not going to worry about, oh, this feels dated. Like Alan Wake does feel dated at this point, but it's from 2010, so get over it and give it a go. And I don't think you'll lose anything from playing them afterwards, but I think you'll gain extra stuff. And maybe you just, maybe that'll just fill in the gaps that you had, or like make things make more sense, or maybe that'll make you just want to go play Alan Wake 2 again, which is absolutely fine. Control is a banger. And this isn't really a spoiler. A game that kind of gets forgotten, and I've forgotten to say its name the entire time. We'll talk about it more in like 2 minutes. Is Quantum Break. Go play Quantum Break. It's this weird,
I'm sorry to that man,
bastard black sheep of a game that was put out during Microsoft's TV, Xbox One launch kind of thing. It's a great game that was kind of marred by stupidity. It's its own thing.
It was. I believe I reviewed that one because I remember waiting for very long times for the TV interludes to download between gameplay sections on my terrible Australian internet. Yeah, that one, a Forgotten Gem, a similar sort of rights issue where it's not quite but almost theirs, but yeah, go for it. Why not?
Well, we can talk about that now. So this is your official, we're going to talk about spoiler warning. So I'll mark the time right now. I will make sure that we talk for a little bit longer, so you don't feel like you're being cheated. And that's enough time now. So we're going to talk about spoilers and stuff. And I guess I want to start by just putting out a phrase. I'm going to do it in my voice. It's not a loop. It's a spiral. Crazy. Just crazy? It's where do we start? I don't know. What do you want to talk about that you've been ruminating on since you've finished?
If we're going to dive straight into spoilers, I would say that each of the past Remedy games have always had that standout sort of show horse. I don't know what you'd even call it. It's like the Big Bang moment.
Yep.
So Alan Wake 1, spoilers for a 13-year-old game. Sorry about it.
Nah.
There's a big rock concert with Tor and Odin, two sort of dementia-having fake Vikings who live in the town, and they use music, and they'll big light show to help you do a big battle arena. It was fantastic at the time. Going back and playing it last week, it's a lot smaller than I remembered, but so was my TV, so it doesn't matter.
Well, but that's the beauty of nostalgia. You're filling in. You know what they were intending. It's this giant-ass rock concert with metal blaring in the background and lights going. What did I call them? Concert poles. Concert poles ablazing.
So many concert poles. And, the song about your adventure and what you're doing. It makes you feel like a badass because it's the first time in the game actually where you have help, really.
Yeah.
Like, other than the occasional environmental assist, you've actively got help in it.
Well,
It's
and it's
such a power
It's
moment.
crazy people, but you're not going crazy because they understand what you're saying and they agree with you. So if you're crazy, at least you're crazy together.
Exactly. So that was Alan Wake. Control had the ashtray maze, if you know, you know. Then Alan Wake 2, they got me a couple times. In Alan's side, you're sort of moving through the dark place. It's a version of New York where he's trying to find ideas, a way to write a story to get out. At one point, you end up going through the film studio for the talk show for Mr. Dorr,
Yep.
who's part of your sort of story loop that you're stuck in. But it turns into a huge musical number. You're moving through the soundstage as like all of the characters in the game are dancing on screens, and there's lights, and there's an amazing music thing going on. Fantastic. I finished that up and then sat down and said, damn, that was great. I wonder how they're going to top it in Control 2. And then a chapter later, they put a whole ass horror film in their whole ass horror game. It's like, it's like 10-15 minutes long. It's like a fully shot, fully acted, like really well lit horror film.
Well, I rag on Hideo Kojima quite a bit for wanting to make movies and having just ridiculously overly long cutscenes in games where everything is explained to you. And like, I don't know if he's a great filmmaker, but he certainly wants to be. If Sam Lake and co wanted to become filmmakers, like, well, they're practically already doing it, and they did it with Quantum Break, I suppose, as well. Yeah. Like they have a history of making this real world films and integrating it into what they did. They did it in Control a little bit, and it's here, and it's just so good. I didn't actually finish Yotanyo. I don't know how that's how you say it, but I was trying to get things done. I was trying to get things done, but the beauty of it is you can go and watch it in the TV screen, and like I did, I sat there for 12 minutes and just let Herald of Darkness play in the radio so I could capture it with my Elgato, so I could then put the song into Spotify so I can play it whenever I want, and I have no regrets, at least until the 8th of December when I can get it on Spotify, which you should.
Yeah, it's great because you've just gone through a boss battle where you sort of went into a liminal space in the theater screen, and then you come out and it's playing the credits, and I was like, oh, that's cute. They've got like goofy credits, and it's got, you know, the characters' names up there. That's fantastic. And then I think I went into the writer's room, which is Alan's version of the Mind Place. And one of the things they point out early is that things happen in real time. So if you're in the Mind Place or the writer's room when you're in the middle of combat, bad idea. So I was in there for a minute looking around, and then I jumped back and realized that the actual movie was starting. And I sat there and I watched the entire thing, like just standing off to the side, Alan looking up at the screen, flashlight off out of respect. And it was a compelling horror film. And then I finished that up and I said, damn, they got me twice. I wonder how they're going to top that in Control 2. And then a little bit later, you have a full rock concert on the beach, while you try not to beef it, being rushed by a non-stop array of enemies. But again, you have help. You've got Alex Casey on lights, you've got Agent Estevez on sass, and you've got Torin Odin on drum and bass. It's fantastic. Like, it lasts for just long enough that you feel threatened, but you still feel like you're kicking ass. And amazing.
And with a lovely sense of humor, like they start the song and then they don't start the song. Like, oh, you're making me look bad in front of my granddaughter. What are you doing?
Oh,
did you pick the Anderson thing like instantly? Because I'm like, it can't be a coincidence that her name is Saga Anderson. Like it's just full of mythos and Anderson, and they are the Anderson brothers.
I sort of clued to it early because you've got Thor, Odin, Saga, and then
Freya, her mom.
I think there's a manuscript page fairly early on that you find out her mom is Freya. So it's like, okay, like we're making the connections. We don't see color in our horror, so there's like blank to fill in there about the lineage, but that also gets addressed a little bit later on if you're paying attention.
I know who her dad. I have a feeling I know who her dad is.
I'm pretty sure there are a few manuscript pages that more explicitly state it.
Well, and then he basically says it. Like, I don't know, it's a spoiler thing. We're talking spoilers. This is a theory. This is not confirmed. Her dad is Mr. Dorr. 100%, right?
Yes.
Okay.
My read of it from the pages, the story, all that, is that he is Saga's dad. He was with Freya. He wasn't a great guy. He was making some bad choices, being a bad member of the family. Thor and Odin needed someone to sacrifice to keep the dark presence at bay. They're like, two birds, one stone. Fantastic.
Yeah.
They threw him in there. He turned into Mr. Dimension Man. That is like it's Lance Reddick's character from Quantum Break.
Well, yeah, he is. He's Martin Hatch from Quantum Break. So Quantum Break is an incredibly important part in this for that reason, and let's get into that first. Lance Reddick, unfortunately, has passed away. He was great in Destiny 2. He was great in a million things. He was great in Quantum Break, and his character basically existed between dimensions, and Mr. Door is in the in-between all of the dimensions. Like anything, like similar appearance, very similar attitudes, and a different name. Maybe out of necessity more than anything else, because I'm sure if Lance Reddick was around, he probably would be Mr. Door. To the point where in the credits, they referenced Lance Reddick. And probably out of respect because he was in a past Remedy thing, but also probably because he probably was going to play a far more important role in this than we necessarily thought. And to add a layer to that, obviously, Sean Ashmore, is that the right Ashmore of the Ashmore twins? One of the Ashmores, the guy who was in Quantum Break, is in this game as Tim Breaker, which there's so many things like that as well. The thing about talking about Alan Wake 2 spoilers is that, like, I don't know where you start, and you need 5 hours to get there, because the Ashmore's character isn't Jack Joyce. Is that his name? Jack Joyce, the protagonist of Quantum Break.
Breaker, who's not from Quantum Break.
Well, yeah.
Or
his name is Tim Breaker, or you put an E in it, it's Time Breaker. And to the point where Courtney Hope, who was the protagonist in Control, who Jesse Faden, she played Beth Wilder in Quantum Break. So there's all these people who are in the in-between, to the point where, and like, you know, it's blink and you miss it, but I'm sure you didn't. Like, you're in the Ocean View Hotel in a random room, and you turn on a TV, and Jesse's there for like a split second saying like, oh, I can't see you, you're there. And then Casper Darling is like looking through, like the FBC is very obviously in this game, but like Jesse and Casper Darling there's Casper Darling books about alternate dimensions, like littered around everywhere. There's so many links to everything.
Take on alternate realities or something. I did spot the Jesse cameo. I thought it was at the end of one of Alice Wake's videos, but maybe I just played everything too quickly and blurred it together. But I only knew it was her because
would it surprise you if it just popped up
subtitle names?
Would it be surprising if it just popped up randomly as you were playing? Like, if there's a TV? No, like, and that's probably even better if it does like that, because it has nothing to do with the story. It's just like they've taken that point in your game to break in, which everything is so good. I love this game.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of the FBC documents you find, and there are a lot of them, like, these people are not good at keeping secrets. Like, they're leaving their equipment just in the parking lot of the sheriff's office. There's literally NPCs crowded around taking photos of their crazy energy cubes. Like, not doing a great job of being not the SCP guys. But it's so integrated into the world. Like, I was so excited when they had the monitoring station right at the start of the game. I was like, oh, it's a nod to Control. That'll tide me over. And then they're a major part of the story for the rest of the game.
Well, and yeah, like it's kind of weird that if you looked at the oldest house in New York, you'd see right through it. Like, you can't see it. There's all these things prod up there, like, in the way, and it seemed like it was unknown. And Jessie like walked in and didn't really know what it was until she was there, and then like it revealed herself to her. Whereas you go to Bright Falls and there's like 2 FBC signs even before you get to the monitoring station. If you go to that door that's locked, that is the shortcut to get back to the car park. There's just signs that say like volcanic activity, you can't go here by the order of the FBC. And Casey's like, oh yeah, they're a very unknown, organization, but they just kind of deal with specific stuff. It's like, that's more information than Alex should know, really, but I'll go with it. Yeah. Like, I'm kind of digging that it's sort of there, but it's a little bit weird, I guess, when you think about it too much.
But at the same time, a couple of FBC characters, including Estevez, make reference to the fact that they've lost touch with home base. But this isn't set when Control happened.
This is after.
Because at the end of the AWE DLC for Control, where they sort of had a nod towards Alan Wake 2 coming. They say, oh, we're getting like a ping for a crazy supernatural event happening in Bright Falls. But it's weird. I think they said 5 years in the future or something at that point.
I think something like that.
5 or 6 years. So a few years on from when Jessie had her adventure in Control, things are going bad again, which seems like a great way to introduce us to what's happening in Control 2.
I'm okay with that.
Like, Jessie's taking the place more public. Something went bad. Who knows?
The FBC is the worst, though, because you'd think they'd know better from there. Like, so Alan's a para-utilitarian, or however you say it. And, like, it's an AWE. But like this, they at the end, I'm glad it happened. But like when you find out all the stuff, you find out, we don't have to go super spoilery. But when like Mr. Scratch escapes confinement, like FBC, this is what you do. Like an FBI agent and one random, like how did you get your ass like kicked so decidedly hard? You have all this tech and all these it was. But, like, it had to happen for the story. I'm not actually complaining, but I was just giggling. Like, you're just a badass in Control. I guess you're not really. The Control agents were pretty awful in Control, too. They needed Jessie with, like,
They needed her that, yeah. Though I do enjoy how integrated the worlds are, because it's a better way of doing it compared to the mess that is, like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, you get to see Robert Downey Jr.'s face for 3 seconds at the end of the film, and you're meant to, explode with joy. But the problem is they have rights and integration issues and blah, blah, blah. And realistically, Remedy had the same with trying to reference Max Payne or Quantum Break, and they said, nah, we're going to do it. Like,
yeah,
the worlds are fully integrated. Like, FBC is everywhere. Like, you've got references to everything. Like, there's 6 different versions of the same character in different iterations in the game. And yeah, it's fantastic because it makes it feel cohesive.
Well, and like, I do appreciate my Xbox more than I appreciate my PlayStation, but I am trying to get the Platinum in PlayStation as well. But like, if Microsoft was smart, Alan Wake is owned by Remedy. Quantum Break is owned by Microsoft. Either give, if you're for being super nice, just give them Quantum Break to make it all make perfect sense, and you can just reference and name people without any worry. Or, Epic helped you with Alan Wake 2, like get Microsoft on board for Alan Wake 3 and like do your We Are the World thing and keep it on PlayStation and stuff. Like help them tie it all together a little bit more, especially seeing how well this is done already and how well it's going to do off the word of mouth of us and so many other people. Like just let them do. It's so inventive what Remedy is doing. It's so unique, and it's like Sam Lake is now talking about wanting to do like this gothic dark thing, which like I'm not a really adventure-y kind of gothic fan, but like if Remedy does it, I'll be there in a heartbeat. Like they can do sci-fi, they can do like horror, they can do film noir, they can do anything they put their minds to, and if it's all connected, so I'm getting like a little bit of Alan Wake fix, like I don't care. I'll follow you blindly through the dark, Sam Lake. You name it, I'll be there.
Yeah, definitely, like, builds confidence in whatever they're going to do next. Like, they've never had a miss. The only one that I'm not, boiling hot excited about was American Nightmare, but that's because it is, like, an arena fighter thing. It was a product of Xbox Live Arcade, fair enough. But, yeah, like, seeing what they do when they have 13 years to work on a game and make it the way they want to make it, as ridiculous as they want to make it, is just a joy to behold. Every week this year, I have to rethink what the game of the year is going to be because it just keeps changing.
Well, I did, but I'm pretty sure I've found my contender. Well, and like that.
Don't spoil it for us.
It's this. It's absolutely this. I've waited 13 years. I'm not disappointed in by any stretch of the imagination. I had an idea of where I thought it was going to go. After American Nightmare, it sort of did with Scratch, it sort of didn't. Some of it was a little bit predictable, but in ways that I feel only could be predictable because I've like been living and breathing this franchise and eating up as much background and lore as I possibly could. So like I know you and I had a couple theories that proved true. to some extent. I don't think we were fully right. We were talking back and forth as we were playing.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that I absolutely nailed. Like Saga is a really good example. But like even then, Remedy did a really amazing job of keeping me on my toes. So initially, like, Saga knew too much, and I'm like, they're cutting corners or something's not right here. She's too accepting of the supernatural, or something's happening, and like she's profiling people and kind of making these crazy leaps that don't make sense. But like that gets explained. I won't get into exactly why. If you've played, you kind of understand why that's explained. Like everything that I was kind of questioning had an answer, and anything that I thought was happening either did come true or was like it was close, but it made sense as to why. And the spiral thing is incredibly insane. What happens to Alice Wake is just like crazy.
That got me. Yeah, at the end of the credits.
Well, yeah, like, we don't have to ruin everything. If you've played it, you know what we're talking about. And if you haven't watched the end of the credits, go back. The thing that really, really, really got me was how they handled, and you mentioned it before, Pat, the radio host from the original Alan Wake. The thing that really got me, I literally had to put my controller down and just sit there and kind of like ruminate for 20 minutes, was what happens to Cynthia Weaver. And like the poet and oh god, what's the song called? The poet and the writer? That might be right. The Find the Lady of the Light. That song that's in Alan Wake, the original, and it's been like, it's been in my Spotify playlists because it's on Spotify for the entire time. What happens to Cynthia is like, I get a little bit sad thinking about it. It's like, it's such a horrible, horrible end to such a incredible character. So like, you do what you have to do, and then I had to kind of like stop and kind of collect myself, and I'm like kind of tearing up talking about it. It's sad because she's like, and like it ties back into Twin Peaks in a way because of the log lady, and like what happens to the actor who played the log lady has passed away. Like, it's all these layers upon layers. It's like this really cool metatextual thing that the more you know, obviously the more it impacts you, but I think it's impactful nonetheless. I'm babbling again.
Yeah, I will say Pat was the one that got me more so, because, throughout the original game, you would hear his broadcasts and it would sort of tie into the story and give you more of a sense of Bright Falls as a town and the people in it. He's still broadcasting 13 years later, but over time, the broadcasts, they sort of become more confused. There's a running theme where he keeps talking about...
the guy running for mayor? Yeah. Was he running for mayor?
The woman who owns the family business.
Yeah. Yep. I forget her name. The jerky people. No.
Yes. So he's talking about her jerky business, and go down and see her, and people keep calling in saying she's dead. Like, to the point where like eventually people are blasting him as like, this is cruel, stop doing this. And the poor old guy is just so confused. And then eventually you find him in a nursing home, broadcasting from his bedroom, and that was the point where it's just like, oh, this poor sad old man.
Yeah.
He's just going through the motions. And then a number of the characters from the original game were older to begin with, and it's been 13 years, so time's passed.
Well, and like you never get to see Pat, and I wish you did, because he was physically present. Where was Pat? Was he?
He's in like the second floor of the nursing home. He's always sitting at his desk broadcasting.
I didn't.
I think he's next to the save room.
I found his desk with his equipment, but I never ran into Pat.
I guess if you're in a Spookums section, he might not be there, but when it's a bit more chill, he's there.
I never found...
Because I went in there and I listened to him do one of his broadcasts live from directly behind him.
Okay. Well, I have to go back and just hang out with Pat for a bit, because he was lovely. Like, you meet him on the way to Bright Falls. Like, you see him before you see Bright Falls. I love him, and these characters are so compelling and so amazing. Cynthia is a great example as well. Someone that I'm shocked didn't make an appearance, and he did via email, is Barry Wheeler, and like I don't know why, and I'm hoping he shows up in the DLC.
That's my thought. Yeah, like they're very intentional about kind of establishing what happened to him and keeping him tied into the story, but my reading of it is that he kind of eventually washed his hands of the whole situation and moved on. So I hope he gets pulled back in some capacity.
And it makes sense. Like his like Alan's his friend. Alan's missing. Alice is caught up in her own artistic endeavor, and he doesn't have. Well, not that they were his only life, but like he's found some fame and he's gone to LA. Like, it makes sense for the character, but it also, like, I just want him to be. I want it to be like Star Trek Picard. Like, just everyone's here. Like, oh, now we're just like, let's go on an adventure together. Oh, Barry's in the dark place. Cool. That's cool. I'd be fine with that. But I'm glad that Remedy showed a little bit of restraint at the same time. Don't let me ever plan a game that you're making, Remedy, because it would be amazing. It would be just very bad fanfic in the style of Alan Wake's departure.
You know who doesn't show any restraint in this game, though? Rose. I love her. I will say, anytime you are talking to Rose in this game, zoom in and look at the facial capture on her especially, because this game, fantastic facial motion capture, so much character, but because she is this absolute screw loose basket case the entire time, she's grinning, she's one of those people who can do the whites all the way around the eyes. She's so fun to watch because she moves in a way that's very concerning, because she's very happy and very matter of fact about the fact that she lives in the horror murder place.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna we have to wrap this up because I need to edit this podcast and put it out tonight. Last thoughts, comments. Mine is Melanie Liebert. I have no idea if I've just butchered your name. I'm very sorry. Fantastic as Saga Anderson, as are obviously Ilka Villi and Matthew Peretta as Alan Wake. Like she I think I like Saga's bits more. I think I like her as a character more. Like, you're not really meant to like Alan Wake. He's a drunk and a egotistical maniac who can't write, but is like compelling, and he is the champion of light and the herald of darkness. Like, he's great in equal measure. But like, Saga is fantastic, and I don't feel bad for liking her bits better, because like, her bits have everything to do with Alan as much as herself. So like, it's some superb writing and planning by Remedy to pull that off, I think. How about you? What's your parting shot?
I was the same. I definitely enjoyed Saga's gameplay more. I will say her character model feels a little bit wooden at times, which at first gave me a concern. Are we doing the trope of the neurodivergent genius detective? But in the live action section, she seems pretty animated. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a bug, but it just felt like where everyone else was like very actively acting, and the actress is capable of that in the live action things. It just didn't seem to follow through on the character model I found. Yeah. Which maybe contributed to the fact that she feels just so reserved and fine with everything the entire time. Parting thoughts, I can't wait for the DLC. It definitely feels like they left some story hooks, and what are the titles? It's the Lake House, which is the name of the FBC thing, so we're getting a Control tie back in, and what was the other one called?
Night Springs, I think it's called. It's dealing with
that's right.
Characters, like, it must be, surely it's Tim, and hopefully Barry somehow. Like, but that's probably my biggest unresolved, that's a word, thing, is like Tim's just kind of left to his own devices, and you can run into him occasionally, and like, he always has more on the whiteboard, and you're like, oh, Jesse, a red-haired person. Like, it all sort of makes sense, but like, he's just kind of left there, and everyone knows he's gone, but no one, I guess when we're trying to save everyone by, writing the manuscript and stuff, like, they call attention to Logan and to everyone, but like, no one kind of mentions poor Tim. And he's like, we'll just leave him there, he'll find his way, poor guy.
Yeah, my sense is that again, in the manuscript, it makes references to the Bright Falls being the sort of name for whatever form the Dark Place takes, depending on who's trapped there at the time. And then you've got the Lake House. My expectation is that the Bright Falls one will tie into Alan's side of the story, and probably Tim Breaker kind of resolving the wall and door thing. Yeah. And then Lake House will be Saga's side in the real world, kind of figuring out what's going on there, and I imagine a full-on Jesse cameo.
Has to be. And also, like, Tim has dreams of Mr. Door for years. Why? I guess probably because he's Jack Joyce in the same way that Door is Martin Hatch. But
he talks about like a different life where he was a different person.
And
but that profile sketch that he got done really does the actor dirty. That's not a good representation. They need better sketch artists in Bright Falls.
It's like, Control obviously has any amount of crazy, weird things that you can throw at it, but like the Dylan stuff is largely resolved. So Jessie doesn't have. I guess she has to get the oldest house out of whatever it's in, and like back into. They're trapped in the oldest house still at the end of Control. So that's obviously a big plot point. I would like everything is coming together quite well. So like I could happily see this, like the Alan Wake, dark presence who is more, like Mr. Scratch is the devil in another word. So like this isn't just like a supernatural occurrence. This is the big bad that's like threatening to usurp the world. Like I'd be happy continuing Alan's story in Control with Jessie and not so much Saga or Alan if I had to, but like I just want more of this plot line, and I like that's obviously what they're intending to do. So yay, Remedy, keep doing it. I'm very happy.
Yeah. Build up to a trinity where we're switching between Jesse, Alan, and Saga. Like, the thinking man's GTA 5.
But clearly Alan Wake 3 is, like, he finds Alice, and they're... This one you thought they were getting out, or you hoped they were getting out. I think Alan Wake 3, when we get around to it, which isn't going to be anytime soon, sadly, like... they'll have enough experience from all the stuff that's happening between now and then that like they're going to launch their actual, we're at the end of the spiral, we're not just looping, we're like, this is our end game. Like I don't think it's going to be like a Resident Evil where like Umbrella just like lives to see another sequel. I hope there is like a proper end point to this story that's, if not crafted, being crafted.
I mean, it's a part of the kind of the plot of this game, like talking about you can't just have like a part 1, a part 2. He needs the 3 novels to kind of reach his end goal, so 3 games to reach his end goal makes narrative sense as well.
Yep.
The spiral stuff, so fun. I love that we get another meme-worthy phrase. I love that the room numbers between the Ocean View Hotel and the Valhalla Nursing Home are the same. Just all these sort of instances that it's just the same place taking a different form.
Yeah.
New Game Plus, whatever that's going to be. Oh. Can't wait.
As long as you don't have to play in Nightmare to get the manuscript, because I'll tell you, on normal sometimes, especially that rock concert at the end, I was losing my patience at the end, and I feel like I'm fairly good at Alan Wake games to not feel too bad. I was having a breeze up until then, and that kicked my ass. Like I was contemplating dropping it to story.
I fully switched to story. I have no qualms about doing that. I would rather enjoy a game than overly challenge myself. I started on standard. The first boss fight, tough. Really reminds you that you're playing a survival horror game, not an action horror game. But yeah.
25 years of experience. I was okay with the first boss, but like it got really complex. And there's hard before Nightmare, and Nightmare in Alan Wake was a nightmare. You had to like really conserve. So like I'm getting too old and I have too many things to play that I don't want to do that anymore. But like I want to see the extra pages. I want to see the extra video content. I want hopefully more stuff that even like we've been talking about for the last hour. We've gone way too long, by the way. Like everything that just adds something more to it, where you don't feel like you necessarily didn't get the full picture ahead of time. But the more like there's just more. It just keeps growing. It's fantastic, and I'm sure that the extra content will just do more of that. So I'm super looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I can't wait for all the super intellectuals to write articles about this game so I can have a better understanding of what I just played. But I will happily return for New Game Plus. Not on Nightmare. I love myself, but I will play again.
And if you don't love yourself, I was trying to make a RuPaul reference and I stuffed it up. Anyway,
how are you going to get out of the dark place?
There you go. How do we find you on the internet, Mr. Matt Gosper?
There's this great website, Stevivor.com. You can find me writing there. I've got 2 reviews in the pipeline, so look out for those in the next couple of weeks. If you enjoy Dying Platforms, you can find me on Twitter at Ponk. If you can find me on Blue Sky, congratulations. I still don't know how it works. Otherwise, that's about it. Just stick your head out the window and holler, and maybe you'll hear me.
Nice. You don't want to find me. I'm lost. I'm too busy trying to rewrite manuscripts to escape from the dark hole with yeah, it's been a long couple of weeks and I am tired, so pretend that made sense and it was fun. Thank you for joining us, Matt. Thank you so much for guesting. I'm so glad you were here instead of Ben. No offense to Ben, he's probably like an hour into Alan Wake and wouldn't have any of the background that you did, so I very, very much enjoyed geeking out with you over this, and I'm sure when we meet up in person in a little while for just Christmassy party stuff, we're just gonna make everyone listen to Alan Wake chat. I'm fine with that, by the way.
You know what? It's a great way to spend time. I'm happy with it.
All right. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you.
Don't forget some batteries.